Welcome to Female Founderhood, a podcast that is actually recorded raw so that you can just eavesdrop on two female founders having a chat, having a rant, absolutely being vulnerable about each other's blood, sweat, and tears, the ugly truth about entrepreneurship, the necessary realness about how we navigate the world that is commonly called as the man's world. How annoying is that? But today, I am with Serena Fordham, who is a founder and CEO at ProspHER, spelled ProspHER. I love it already. So, ProspHER is uniting, supporting, and empowering women from all walks of life to develop career, business, and lives of passion, purpose, and power. Like, honestly, she's taking words out of my mouth. Welcome, Serena.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I will try not to swear because when I start ranting, I will.
Oh my God. I forgot to tell you, this podcast, it is explicit. Like, we can bloody swear.
I'll try and keep it to the nice swear words, as my kids say. Like, I'm one of those parents that are like, when the kids go, "Is bloody a swear word?" I'm like, you can get away with that one. Is arse a swear word? We can get away with that one. Is fuck a swear word? Yeah, no, you're not saying that one. So yeah, I'll keep it to the nice ones, maybe.
So apparently,
We'll see.
So there's a degree of swear words, and I love that because I'm new in England, only 3 years old in England. I learned that, and I love how reserved English people are, that they make the polite version of the swear words.
Yeah.
So even bloody has the version of blimmin'.
Yeah, blimmin' or blinking. Yeah.
So
and a lot of English people will actually, especially where I am in Norfolk, because it's we're a bit behind the times in terms of the rest of the country. We've got quite an elderly population that live here because we're by the coast and stuff. So a lot of people will like just replace swear words with the letter. So like sh or foo, or like to, rather than actually say the swear word, to keep it like they want to. But I like to use them as expressionism, like I like to kind of, so, and it's normally when I don't mean to swear. I've been brought up to not swear at all. Like probably if my parents listening to this, they'll be like, "Oh wow, she dropped an F-bomb. That's not good." I'll get a telling off later. But it's kind of I try not to say things, but sometimes when you're ranting and you're getting like really passionate about something, they just slip out, and I find that when I'm on stage or anywhere, I kind of then find myself backtracking or like apologizing because I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I don't want to offend anyone."
And at the same time, we always say, "Excuse my French."
Yeah.
So I have to check with my French friends whether they are offended when you're saying that.
I don't know. Yeah, that's just become a common phrase, hasn't it?
I know. Yeah. And it's so funny. I think, when French people swear, probably they say, "Excuse my English."
Yeah, well, I was then actually thinking the same thing. Like, do they, or do they just say, "Excuse"? Maybe a French person once said, "Excuse my French," and it just stuck, and it was a conversation with an English. I'm a real history buff, so I almost always want to know like the origins of these things.
So
and
after this recording, you're welcome to go on the rabbit hole to find out.
Yeah, we'll find out, and I'll let you know. Yeah.
Make it a LinkedIn post.
Cool. Will do. I'm bound for that now.
So you are a best-selling author. That gives me the old FOMO because I've been a writer since I was 9. That means 30 years of writing, and yet I've never produced a single book. So what did you write?
Well, it was really interesting. I was part of a book series when for Mums in Business Association, literally like what are we talking, probably 5 years ago now. And that almost, I was the same at that point. So I was 30, and I kind of, I'd always said I'd release a book of some description by the time I was 30. So I got involved in this like group book, you know, contributing. And then, because I'd always written from like a young age, poems or anything, song lyrics, just random stuff, like had notebooks full of stuff, and was like, oh, I am gonna put something out there. And once I did, I then kind of kept getting approached by other books. So I think that one was more focused on business and entrepreneurship. Then I did one on like, I had an eating disorder when I was a teenager, so I wrote about that, and loads of different aspects of my life, I suppose. And then a couple of years down the line, I was like, actually, I'm just going to write my book myself. And it was called or is still available on Amazon, little plug there.
Yeah.
Called Her Funny Business, and basically it's a real account of entrepreneurship, probably a bit like what we're doing today, talking and saying
Oh,
about
I'll
the
check it out.
honesty, but
Yeah.
then bringing in educational stuff as well that I learned along the way. So it's
Yeah.
not just the entertaining read or a funny read, or I bitch a bit at some points about certain things that happened and stuff, but then it's got like the educational kind of how to build your business from a startup included in that. So I wanted it to be that educational, but also a lot of stuff I do anyway in business
Yeah.
is enjoyment, and you know, finding different ways to learn, and you know, almost pictured someone taking it on holiday and still like having an enjoyable read as well as an educational read. So yeah, and I have actually, because since then that Her Funny Business is branded on my previous business, which ProspHER superseded, so we kind of rebranded and renamed and stuff. So in my head I've got another book that I think I'm going to have to release in kind of the purple ProspHER branding, and I want to call it Prosperous, because it's kind of me moving on to the next stage of like growing the business. So rather than sort of going from startup to like you know a couple of team members to now you know going international and growing to the next level, and what tools and stuff I've used to do that. So I think that's kind of going to be the next almost natural but what I would recommend is almost what I did is with Her Funny Business. I literally just decided one day, I had all this content that I'd written down that kind of was all in different like parts of notebooks and different notebooks and scraps of paper and stuff, and I literally just said I'm gonna write it, and I sat down and I wrote it. I focused on that and only that for 10 days. So I literally wrote it and self-published it within 10 days. I just decided that was what I was going to do. So I would recommend, even though that seems like full on, if you've got a lot of ideas and stuff already down and you kind of know it will flow, like you almost just really need to be disciplined. You know, I know people that have written books for years and they're still working on books, but actually the world needs to hear what you're writing, the world needs to hear what you're thinking, and so it's almost like that you're doing the world a disservice by not getting it out there. So I would just recommend, if like for you or anyone that's listening, like if you've got a book, and they say everyone's got a book inside them, don't they? But
yes, absolutely.
I mean, my view was always when I wrote it was, if it helps one person, then
mission accomplished.
Then yeah, like because writing is my therapy. Like I journal a lot, and that's kind of how I deal with emotions and difficult things that have happened in my life. So for me, it was good therapy to write it. But also, I mean, I've sold in excess of 10,000 copies. I don't know the exact number now, but it's 10,000 and something else. So considering when I first wrote it, I thought, oh well, if one person, you know, my mum reads it, then she'll be proud and all is good. So yeah, it did better than I thought it would. But I think it's because I didn't write it to become an author, I suppose, and have
I
that,
see. So
you know,
you wrote for the sake of writing and
yeah,
for the sake of sharing, for the sake of helping out. And I think that is such a refreshing take for a lot of the trends these days that people
mm,
write for posterity. For me, because I was born a writer, I cannot draw to save life.
no, me
But
neither.
like I
Stick
remember,
men, stick men, got it. Anything
oh my
else,
goodness,
no.
even that I remember this is a few years ago when I think it was the year of chicken, the Chinese New Year, and I was briefing our interior decorator in the hotel that I was working for. And they're saying, "Ma'am, did you mean to draw a chicken? Because, or did you mean to draw a goat? Because this is the year of chicken." And I'm like,
and 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 if it was, did you mean to draw a swan or any other bird, then you could, but the fact that they're not even the same species is, yeah, slightly,
no,
mine would be the same.
no, absolutely. But, and I was like, well, you know what I mean. It's definitely it's the year that's coming up. It's definitely the year of chicken. But here's the thing. But writing and speaking, that's another thing.
Mm,
For a lot of people, speaking can be their biggest fear, right?
yeah,
For me, it's singing that is my embarrassing skill or lack thereof. So knowing that every person have their own natural ability to do stuff, that is where I think we should then double click on.
mm,
And so what I'm saying is I agree with you that uh if someone loves writing, then you should write it out. But even if you don't write, but you can naturally speak on microphone or on a camera, then you should probably start your
yeah,
YouTube or podcast. But definitely, a lot of women, a lot of young girls need to hear more stories. And that's
yeah.
why I want to double click on your story. Two things I wanted to ask about your younghood, a teenhood. So, I wanted to know a little bit about the eating disorder. And the second is, did you always knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? So, take me to whichever.
Okay, whichever. I'll probably do them in turn, as you've asked me. So, the eating disorder, I suppose they actually do come hand in hand thinking about it, because as
Mm,
I was growing up, I was very much a bookworm. I wrote from a young age.
mhm.
From about 7 or 8, I was, up in my room writing stuff, writing songs, recording songs. Daren't listen to the cassettes now because I'm the same, awful. But at the time, thought I was good and used to get the yellow pages out and send them off. To record companies, and always got a rejection letter. But yeah, at least someone
Oh
did
my God, I love
listen
that. I love
potentially.
that.
Um, and used to create little cotton wool balls that I made into mice and sold them on the school playground. So I always had this entrepreneurship in me,
Mm,
I suppose. And my dad went self-employed as a barber, so
mm,
or hairdresser. So I
mm,
always kind of aspired to him, like self-employment and that kind of thing. So I suppose I already also always had the entrepreneurial spirit in me.
mhm,
But I did, when I was younger, I wanted to be a vet. And then I worked at an animal shelter voluntarily between age 11 to 15.
mhm.
And then soon realised I hated blood. I hated when the animals died. Probably couldn't have come to terms with being a vet and A, operating and seeing any blood, and B, putting any animal down. So that dream almost like died a death really when I realised that. But then through my teens, I've suffered with mental health from a young age as well, and stuff thus kind of, and I suppose that's where writing was always then my therapy, but I self-harmed at one point in early teens, and then I think the eating disorder was around the time I was with my ex-husband, because I got married at 21,
Wow.
divorced at 23, and I think because I was an estate agent, so I worked long hours when I first graduated, and the eating disorder and the exercise addiction was my way of controlling the situation. I think because I was working such long hours, so obviously my schedule wasn't my own, you know, I was being very dictated. My ex-husband was a police officer, so he did shifts and stuff, so like I didn't really see him, and that was a lot of the reason why our marriage broke down and stuff. So I think the whole eating disorder, I went to India actually on a uni trip and got deli belly, and was quite sick for a few months, so I could only eat like dried food like Cheerios and toast and stuff. And then almost, I think because I then lost quite a considerable amount of weight, and I'd lost quite a considerable amount of weight before I went to India, but then obviously that then became dangerous when I came back. And that was probably a good year that went on. I think it's very interesting because in society people almost like praise you for, you know, losing. Oh, you done because I've always been like, take after my mum's side of the family. We're, you know, they won't mind me saying we're all quite short and quite dumpy. You know, that's kind of the
I'm a little teapot as well.
yeah, you know, but that is how we always were. But obviously, as I got slimmer and slimmer, people were like, oh, you know,
praising you.
Well done. Yeah, so kind of that fed. So I was almost thinking, you know, this is something I can control. So I did more and more exercise, ate less and less, and then one day I was in the shower in my first apartment I lived in, and it was an enclosed shower, and I passed out in it, and the water was rising, and I woke up and the water was like, I was obviously slumped down and the water was up here.
Wow.
And that almost shocked me into going, that's crazy, like you could have drowned, you know, like something could have happened. So then I kind of just sort of clicked out of it really. So yeah, it's kind of, but I think it's almost finding, your brain tries to find solutions to challenges, but sometimes the solutions will be just as bad or worse for you than the challenge. And that was, I suppose, an example of that. So I think hence why now I tend to, a lot of people say, oh, you're really easygoing and like you're really chilled out, your plans are really fluid and stuff. But I think it's from learning in those sort of situations that when you do try and over control, you can actually suffocate yourself in the situation. And I think because I got married young and then divorced quite quickly, in my head I thought I'd done things the right way, you know, as the plan, as society. You know, you meet someone, you buy a house, you get married, or whatever way that comes, and then you think about a family and stuff. So it was interesting because then when I was divorced and I then moved on and met my husband, who I've now been with for 12 years, I met him 5 months later. We were pregnant with my daughter. Fully planned. We just decided, we met each other, you know. And I look back now and think, if a friend had said to me, yeah, I'm gonna have a baby with someone I've only known 5 months, I'd have gone, are you nuts? Like, what have you been drinking? Have you been putting like alcohol on your cereal? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of now just throw caution to the wind and let it work out itself. And I
So
think
you
I do
almost,
that.
so the pendulum swung
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
the other way
And I
around.
think back to that time in my life from being young and a teenager and sort of very lonely and had a rabbit as a friend, and that was about it. God rest his
What was
little
its
soul.
name?
Flossie. Or
Oh,
he was an evil rabbit though. He literally like he was one of these rabbit you had to wear like oven gloves to pick up because he'd just scratch you and like bite you and was just horrible. So, but
maybe, maybe it identified as a massive cub.
yeah, maybe I don't know. Yeah, it was like a pit bull or something in its past life. I don't know.
Uh,
But yeah,
so
it kind of I suppose
so you
that
had
experience did
so you had your
something.
so you had your eating disorder not even as a teenager. You were a full blown adult, as in you had a husband, you had a
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
And
So
this is so
yeah,
good for everybody to know, because in your mind, when you hear eating disorder, you go immediately teenagers on TikTok, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Whereas anyone can be so um anyone can be exposed to that vulnerable state where
yeah,
what else can I control? Because self-harm is also a form of self-control.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
a lot of people don't know that. People think self-harm is crying for attention or anything else, but that's actually you're trying to control the
yeah.
pain, because the pain, the emotional pain that you have is beyond your control. So you
Well,
want to
it's
control.
that it's that release as well of like obviously I've always suffered from depression and didn't know that when I was
Mhm,
younger,
mhm.
and now it's managed and I know my triggers and I know I fully say like I think when you do have depression it's a medical illness and
Yes.
people there's that stigma that people throw around, oh, I'm depressed, or I've got bad mental health and stuff, and
Mhm.
okay, yeah, you can feel
Low.
um low, but I think when you've diagnosed with it and it's medical illness, it's not something
Mhm,
you ever. It's like I'm diabetic. I will probably never overcome diabetes.
mhm. Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got a thyroid condition. I will never overcome that. It's
yeah.
just about learning to manage it,
It's a
whether it be with
condition.
medication, yeah, with medication, with diet, with exercise, with whatever,
Therapy. Yeah.
and mental health is the same. I can identify the triggers now, and
Mm,
rather than go to starving myself
mm,
or going crazy at the gym or um, cutting my wrist or whatever that may be, I go to journaling,
mm,
meditation, going for a walk, taking the dog for a walk,
mhm,
being in nature. So I
mhm.
think that's what comes with maturity when you're younger, and even as a woman starting her career, I felt my life was pressured, and I suppose was pressure. Maybe I think now I look back and think I probably knew my relationship wasn't the right relationship, but
Mm,
in my head it was that um, you meet someone, get engaged, get married, and because you've got constant reinforcing of, oh, you're
yeah.
doing the right thing, you're
Yes.
doing great, whether it be your weight or your body shape or whatever, or like your lifestyle, people are like, you're conditioned to please people, and if they're pleased then you think, well, this must be right. And it was only when I stopped trying to please other people and just looked inward at myself
Mm,
that I turned around and said, well, what do I actually want out of life, and then identify triggers of my mental health as well.
yeah.
So I think that's really important for anyone who's listening, is that it's so easy with society and family and stuff to kind of please, like we people please without even know we're people pleasing. But actually,
Especially women,
yeah,
we are shaped to be the decoration in the room, quote unquote, to be the eye candy,
mm,
um, and therefore to be the entertainer as well, right? In imagine if you were in a boardroom. You're almost not only the entertainer, the housekeeping, the servant, the
Yeah.
waiter. You're having, you're expected and almost second net like second nature, offer everyone's tea and biscuit.
Yeah.
So that is, and here's the kicker. And when you don't, people judge.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's so cold.
Yeah. Well, look, that's what I was going to say. It's almost that, because what I'm talking about is taking back your power and saying, okay, what do I want out of life?
Yeah.
And building a life based on what you want, what relationship you want, you know, what lifestyle you want, what money you want, what career you want, business, whatever. And actually some people, or a lot of people, or society will say, well, that's selfish, you know, like you're being really selfish saying, well, what do you want? And I'm like, well, actually, if I get what I want, then my husband gets what he wants as
Yes.
well, because I'm happier, I'm making money, I'm kind of providing for the family and supporting him, and we're a team. You know, we're living the lifestyle we want. Our kids are happier, our family is happier, you know, like everyone, that kind of cascades out. So
Yeah.
it's self-love and self-care and protecting boundaries and listening to your intuition and living your life on your own terms. But society somehow views that as selfish, in the same way as if you don't offer to pour the tea as a woman in a boardroom, you will be seen as selfish. But it's not being selfish, because what about all the other men that are sitting there that could be pouring the tea as well?
Yeah.
You know, but that's kind of how, and I think that's what frustrates me now we're in 2023 is, yes, women have been elevated, but there's still not full equality at all levels. And I think that's what frustrates me. It's almost this, oh, we moved on from that. You know, there's no
no more.
everything. Yeah, everything's equal, and it's like,
and we should shut up about it.
no. Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah,
all right already. Like
yeah,
enough about that.
yeah,
Right? Like, what do you mean enough about that? We still have, yes, of course, if you want to see basic stuff like women can vote, women can drive, women can own a bank account, basic stuff, yeah, all right, nailed it. Congratulations, 100 years late, but
yeah,
okay. However, the things that, and this is again, even if, and I spoke about this in a different podcast when I was a guest once, even if you want to be a selfish prick, there I say it, if you own a company, you will want to hire, retain, and promote women because they will bring you so much of the feminine touch. And I know I'm being gendered here, but we cannot deny that we do offer a completely different skill set, a completely different ambience to the team. And the diversity actually will enrich more ideas, more perspective, more profit. So even if you're still being sexist, as in, okay, fine, let's just hire those birds.
yeah, yeah. Or you're ticking a box, you know. I was on a panel recently, and there's so much of that. Okay, we need to have this much percentage of women, this much percentage of this
quota,
ethnicity, etc. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
even
you're still getting diverse people in, which is still better than nothing, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you want to just like, men, I don't need you to change yourself, but just be inclusive for the very selfish financial reason. Hiring and promoting women will be good for your business, even if you as a person is a misogynist.
Yeah.
Then you'll think, okay, well, if in my mind all I care about is profit, and if hiring and promoting women means more profit, then do it. And it
Yeah.
is true. And in the past decade, it has been proven that in the stock market, those companies, and this is public companies, right?
Mm.
Those companies with female leaders have their stock either stable or going up.
Yeah. But I
So,
think that's because
yeah,
I think it's because the majority, and I don't like to stereotype because everyone's different, but the majority of women I know that I've met in my lifetime, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that
yeah,
when a problem comes, they focus on finding the best solution, and they're
yeah.
not focused on like
Who
the
to blame?
problem, and this is or it's like, okay, whatever resources we need, we will find.
Yes,
It's that ability to look outside of the realms of normality and
yes.
say, we can solve it this way or this way, and we can bring in these people, or we can feed 5,000 with like a
Like
few loaves of bread
Jesus.
and a bit. Yeah, do you know? Yeah, it is that. And I think, well, it's interesting because a friend of mine not long ago said her daughter, who's quite young, so early 20s, went for a job interview not long ago, and basically was asked the question, when is she planning on having children? Yeah, and that's the thing. In the public eye, there's no discrimination when it comes to gender. It's all fine and dandy, and we've moved on, but it's happening at ground level. And she actually was educated enough, and she is a feminist and very and she kind of said, well, regardless of when I'm planning to, actually, when I return from work after having children, I'll be even more of an asset to you because
Mhm.
I'll have learnt the skills of motherhood,
Yeah.
and those skills of, the finance skills and budgeting skills, the dealing with kids wiping bums while you're on conference calls and things like that. Like, I
Thinking
think,
on your feet
yeah,
and pivoting,
yeah,
and dealing with unreasonable human beings,
yeah, yeah,
toddlers,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the fact that, and also answering and explaining concept to 5, 6 year olds.
Mm,
And that is, I tell you, because I teach classes that is called the art of explanation. And we all know if you cannot explain it to a 6 year old, you probably don't have a good grasp of that
yeah.
concept yourself. So, by the way, so you started working in a as an estate agent. So you were kind of self-employed, or were you employed in an agency?
No, I was employed, but I was on
Mm-hmm.
really crap money.
Mm-hmm. How crap are
Well,
we talking? Tell us.
we are so when I started, this was a quite well known estate agent. I won't
Mm-hmm.
say their name, but
Yeah.
they're up there in the quite well known across
Mm-hmm.
nationally.
Yeah.
And I went for 100 interviews when I graduated. So I
Mm-hmm.
graduated from business management, top five. UEA is a top 5 university of that
Mm-hmm.
degree. I'd
Mm-hmm.
done really well. 100 interviews, but that was the recession, and so everything was a struggle. Fell into a state agency, hated sales and stuff, so God knows
Mm-hmm.
why I even went for the job. I was
Desperation.
on I did 50-60 hour weeks. I
Mm-hmm.
had a shitty BMW 1 Series company car, which was
Yeah.
white with their logo on, so collect the dots. And I was on £10,000 basic salary.
A year.
Yes.
So that uh and just to give an international audience a context, how much so £10,000 a year, and how much can someone in a household of two, you and your husband, how much do you need for rent and basic needs?
We need minimum to survive, and we
Mm-hmm.
live in a 3-bedroom, fairly modest, semi-detached bungalow in a village in Norfolk.
Mm-hmm.
We need about 40,000
A
minimum.
year.
Yeah,
Goodness. And that is
yeah.
not even with children, not even with
No,
childcare.
no,
So
no.
basically, all in all, for context, you were earning only a quarter of what your cost of living
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
So that was how dire the situation was. So
yeah.
how did you break away from that and into entrepreneurship?
So I literally, so luckily I was good with people. So even though I had that as basic salary, I did
Mhm.
earn commission, but it was hit and miss.
Yeah.
But I was good with people. The problem I
Mhm.
found is that I wasn't a good salesperson in that the estate agency world, because I wouldn't
Mhm.
lie to people. I was
Wait,
a
wait.
I
Okay, pause,
I
pause, pause. If if people's definition of a good salesperson is that they lie, that that
well
is
that
that's another pet peeve of mine. That
well
Serena, you
that
will see me.
yeah.
You will see me in the next few weeks. I'll be posting because I already planned my post on LinkedIn because I'll be ranting a lot about the behavior of salespeople these days,
Mm,
especially on LinkedIn, has become so wild, so inappropriate, annoying, etc., etc.
yeah,
And it has become almost like being knocked at the door, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um,
Those
in an
sales people that come to the door and
yeah,
buzz the hell out
yeah,
of you,
yeah,
yeah, and
exactly. So
now
it
they're
has
doing it
come
in your LinkedIn DMs, basically,
exactly.
yeah.
I'm like, what is this? 1980?
Yeah,
Um, and but anyway, I think the word is not that you weren't a good salesperson, but you weren't a catty or
no. I
yeah,
wasn't a good salesperson in the eyes of that estate agent.
yes, in
And
that
the reason,
standard.
yeah, and the reason being because I stuck to my values and my morals, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't lie. I didn't want to say, oh, there's another 5 offers, you need to offer more money, when there was no
Mm.
other offers on the table. Like, I'm not gonna do that. So I think my own personal pride, and so I only lasted a year there, and then I
Mm.
actually got a job selling and letting barn conversions, which was amazing because I'm a property geek. My husband's a
Ah,
site
okay.
agent for a building firm, so we love property, and we're a bit, when we go away in a city, we'll spend most of the time looking at architecture and looking at buildings. We're a bit
Yeah,
sad like
yeah.
that, but so yeah, I then moved on to doing that in a more managerial role, and then I was made redundant when I had gave birth to Ella, and I was then due to go back to work about 14 months later, but was made redundant.
Mm.
I kind of think, oh, it was because I wasn't there. My replacement was obviously not as good as me. so
Mm.
so I then didn't have a job to go back to, unfortunately. But
Mm.
then that kind of changed my life, because I was like, well, I cannot go back into an estate agency working like 50
Mhm.
hours a week again on not, I still wasn't on, I was on about £18,000 a year then, so I still
Yeah.
wasn't on the best money for
Mhm.
management job.
Mm.
um and I was just like, oh, I'm just going to work for myself. So I knew I wanted to run a business, but I didn't know what to. And then an estate agent, um a friend who was friends with someone who wanted to set up an estate agent, kind
Mhm.
of wanted to use me for sort of consultancy purposes. So I kind of then set up a virtual assistants business by accident, just by helping
Mm.
him and then getting more clients, and then the team. So this was 2013, the year I got married.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of grew from there, really. So I then kind of grew that business. I had about 30 freelancers
Wow.
all over the world. So that was quite cool. And then I then had a client who she ran a local women's networking
Mhm.
group, and was like, I don't have time to keep it running. Do you want to keep it running? And I was doing like all the admin and stuff for it anyway. So I was like, yeah, I'll take it over. And then kind of, so that was 2015. And then that grew into her business revolution, which now is ProspHER, to running big festivals and
Wow.
our online community and the training and stuff that we have in there. So yeah, it's a bit mad when I look back on it and think like it all kind of happened by accident. But I suppose that comes back to when I must have always had that entrepreneurial spirit, and always loved working with people and talking to people and working in teams and sharing ideas and stuff. So I just think, yeah, that kind of it, and that's why I suppose my approach to education with any level, whether it be my kids who are 6 and 10 to students I've taught like colleges and stuff, all the way up to adulthood with ProspHER, is that do what you love, focus on your passions. And so almost, you know, a lot of people say you need to have a goal and work towards it, which yes, you do to a degree, but actually if you follow your passions and things that excite you and make you want to wake up in the morning, then you will be successful, because it'll just evolve from, and you'll always love what you do and you'll make money doing that thing. You know, and that's what I'm trying to. My daughter is really artistic. She obviously doesn't take after me at all. She's really artistic. And so, you know, there's like, as a mum, rather than, you know, forcing her to, obviously I want her to have a good, as good of level as education as possible, but I'm nurturing that artistic creative side of things. You know, she helps me with Canva for the business and design things and all that kind of thing. And I think, you know, that's always been my take on education. If you just carry on doing what you love and you have a passion for it, you will succeed in that thing, because you'll naturally attract the people that will support you on your journey. You will naturally, randomly, opportunities will come up that you didn't know even existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
If
and
you
it will just
don't get out of the
snowball.
house,
Yeah,
you won't bump into anyone to start
no,
with, right?
no.
So, and so you had the VA agency. So do you still have it?
No, I sold that.
Ah.
So I found that her business revolution, it was about 2017, 18. It was then becoming a powerhouse. It, you know, almost the women's network was always like that side hustle. I hate that
Yeah.
word, but like the side thing, and Glow Virtual Assistants was the main business, you know, that I focused on. And then I think because I enjoyed doing the women's stuff more and more, and because I'd been in rooms where you know, I was taking minutes on a meeting and things like that, and saw how men worked and how was in a lot of those environments, I almost preferred to be on the working with women more and more. And
Same.
I, yeah, and I think it was from the estate agency world is very kind of male dominated, you know, and then going into VA, you know, majority of my clients were male, because they
Yep.
generally need organizing. Generally, you know,
Quote
that is a
unquote, they
fact.
just wanted a
Yeah,
secretary to run their life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But however, so that kind of, I think the more and more I worked with women, the more I enjoyed that. And then so it got to the point where kind of my attention was so focused on that Glow kind of just sort of just ran itself, because it kind of had to. It was like the neglected child. That's all right, my puppy's back.
Independent
Hello.
child.
Say hello.
Oh, there's a
Yeah.
puppy.
Buddy's back from his walk.
Oh.
Thanks, Katie. He's going to try and get in the daughter's room now and be a pain. See you later. Yeah, so sorry, he's thrown me now. He's too cute. Yeah, I think I was always in male dominated rooms, and then
Yeah.
I kind of just, that was so different that I just gravitated more and more. And then Glow kind of was that neglected child that then was surviving well on its own. And so at that point I just said, you know, because I'm very much, if I don't give 100% or I can't give 100% to something, I won't do it. So because it's obviously not serving me, my family, my life, you know, and other people. You can't do the best you can if you're not willing to put 100% in. So at that point I was like, let that go. And I suppose then 2018 was then when we added the online community rather than just the events, which obviously I'm glad we did, because then the pandemic hit and events were kind of all went online and it was all a bit bleh. So yeah, kind of when I look back on my journey, I suppose I've always developed as an entrepreneur and recognized when to accept opportunities and say no to, you know, things and let go of things. But I think that is the part of the journey that is exciting, isn't it? Is that fluidness, that flexibility. And I don't think I could ever go back to corporate world. I don't think.
Here's the one thing that I have, I always hear people, you know, selling their business, etc. But what I never really hear about is how does one go about it? Okay, so you, again, explain it like I'm 6. So you had your business, your revenue, you had a team of 30. And then as soon as you decided, okay, I cannot give it 100%, so it's only fair for me to just sell it and let somebody else who can give their 100%.
Yeah.
So what was your next step after that? Did you find a buyer?
Yeah, well, I was quite fortunate that one of the consultant VAs that was working with me, because the way my business was set up, and I suppose how ProspHER is set up now, it's the same blueprint in a way. We have sort of the central board, and then we have freelancers who you know, then the freelancers were running their, you know, getting clients and like learning, and you know, we were investing in their development and stuff like that, and they were buying into that training and development. But one of those VAs then was at the position she wanted to almost go full time, because a lot of them were like sort of part-time side hustle, that kind of thing. And so at that point she was like, well, if you're thinking of selling, then or I think I put it out on the group, and the group of the consultants, I think there's about 29 of them at the time, and said, you know, do you want to, anyone interested in having this discussion? And she'd actually been with me from more or less the start, so that kind of was a natural, you know, a lot of people aren't that lucky, they have to go out and you know, find a company to sell,
acquire. And how did you? So this is I wouldn't say unique, because there is a lot of I think natural progression. Somebody's taking over, or a partner buying out the other partner, and things like that. But how did you? And I want women to know about this, because we are so bad at pricing. You know that. So
exactly.
how? And we always underprice ourselves, right? Even, oh gosh, I'm going on a rant. Even knowing that our male counterparts are making more money, we're still underselling. So how did you, so you know the business inside out, the other person, she's been with you along the way, so she knew also how you built it from zero. How did you then price it and sell a business? Because it's not easy to price a business.
Well, I worked closely at the time with our accountant, and I almost let her, I would recommend anyone to almost outsource that part of it, so it's very based on the facts. And because I think when you've founded a business, you know, like I suppose I'm in that place with ProspHER now, where it's my baby, and back then Glow was the same. You're so close to it, almost you're not subjective, you're not kind of logical in terms of this is what it's worth. So I kind of, the I stepped back and let the accountant do her stuff, whatever.
The valuation.
And she, obviously pulled off all the figures and stuff from the account system and basically valued it based on the industry standard and norm and stuff, and came up with a figure. And then I then went to this individual who purchased, and we kind of backed and forth with negotiation, but then both kind of settled on where we were both happy with. I mean, I suppose people come from it from different angles. My thing as well is you've got to remember as well that a lot of the clients had been with me for a lot of years as well, so I was blessed in that. So I was battling with that. I want to get top price for the business, but then also I want those clients to be looked after because they've been the reason the business has been successful and has grown. They almost invested early in terms of using the service, and and so kind of at that time that was the scale, and almost trying to get a balance between, because I knew I could have gone out and said onto the open market, but then you'd have had other fees to pay, solicitors fees, but I already sort of trusted this person, so I was willing to negotiate slightly lower, and we did come to a good figure. So I think it's just about, I think if anyone is at that stage where they're thinking of selling or letting the business go or whatever, it's just about balancing that emotional attachment because I have my morals and my values, and I'm very keen to stick to them regardless, like my core values. So, to another person, they might just see the business as a transaction. Buddy. All right, Buddy's now deciding to bark. He wants everyone to know he's here. So some people will see it as very transactional, but I still saw it, even though I detached myself from the business, there was still that emotional element to make sure that it was passed on to, someone else who did actually look after the client. So that's all right. I'm just going to go check that he's
Okay, my penultimate question is then, so you exited your business, so you got a good capital out of it, right?
Yeah.
And then how did you buy out the business that is now ProspHER, or how did it work?
No. So I was already sole director on her Business Revolution at the time. So that was a business like running totally separate from Glow. So I took some money for me, so had a nice holiday and that kind of thing. But the majority I did invest into her Business Revolution at the time to then grow that, and then obviously now ProspHER has developed from there. So I'd say it was a good choice. With what the thing is, I think it's that with anyone listening, it's kind of that there's always that battle between time and money, and you kind of, I could have had the two companies running alongside one another. He's going to start now. The podcast here. Sorry, I'm just going to leave him in the room. He's going to. Yeah. To anyone listening, don't get a dash on puppy. They're so naughty, it's unbelievable. So I think there's always that like balance between time and money, and kind of you can never get time back. You can never so I could have ran both businesses.
Okay, we lost Serena. And she's back.
Sorry, I'm back. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, so there's always that balance between time and money, and you can never get like time back. You know, that's the only thing you can't
Mhm.
pay for or trade for. So in my head, even though I could have ran both companies and the money, I would have still had to split myself, or, you know, I still had to manage, you know, I still had to look at reports. I still had to spend some time on Glow, even though I wasn't involved in the business as such. So now I look back and think, because someone asked me actually a few weeks ago, like, oh, you know, do you ever wish you'd have kept Glow going? And kind of, because now it has unfortunately closed. So
Ah,
it's not, you know, this particular lady took it on, rebranded it and stuff, and then her circumstances changed. It just didn't work out. So, and I kind of think, well, no, because that was the right decision at the time with the information I had at the time.
yeah.
And so I don't have any regrets. I think you just can go by like your morals and your values and your purpose and that intuition at the time. And you can't really have those sort of regrets. You know, had I have kept it going, yeah, that might have looked different, but then would ProspHER be here today? You know, would I
Yeah.
have had another child because I had the time to have two children, you know, and that kind of thing. So you think it's almost like it's not worth looking back and thinking, well, what if? Because that it's meaningless, really, isn't it? You know, it wasn't. So it's not worth worrying about what if. And I had my time, and my time has always been more precious to me than any amount of money. So
Oh, yeah. No
yeah,
matter how rich you are, time is something that you can never buy back.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah. So to wrap up all, this is like such a heart to heart conversation. I love it.
Put the world
And
to
I could
right
talk for
today.
hours. So to close, in Serena's world, so complete this sentence. When I'm king.
Okay, so when I'm king, every person will be seen as a human being with values and not judged based on what's on the outside.
Oh gosh. Every time I ask, and every woman always give beautiful answers. That's why I exclusively want to work with women. This is beautiful. I want every woman to be king. Or rather, I want every kingdom to be headed by
A
women.
woman. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that is
definitely.
that is a beautiful way to end. And I always end it beautifully because all of my guests are always putting on kindness, peace, no judgment, all everything,
Yeah,
all the rainbows and unicorns. Nobody's talking about, you know, when I'm king, I'm gonna conquer everything and
yeah.
everybody.
But you can't
So
possibly do that. You can't, like, it's the same with business or any leadership or anything, like anything you do in your life. You can't, people are amazing. Like what, like you can do it together and rise higher together. And that's, I
yeah,
think, in a lot of the time, a lot of men, if they're in leadership roles, try and take it all on their shoulders, but actually they're doing the world a disservice, because working with people, they would be having a better time in life, and also the outcome would probably be a million times better.
1,000%.
Mm.
Okay, and thank you so much, Serena, for coming. And with that, I'm going to wish you all listeners a fun and fearless day. Enjoy your career, your business, your hustle, because if you enjoy it, it doesn't feel like work. And see you on the next episode. Bye.